If they can make you angry, they win. As you watch this, there are billion-dollar algorithms designed for one specific purpose: to break your silence. In 2026, your reaction is the world's most profitable product. If they can make you anxious, they get the views. If you get scared, they get paid. If you engage, they get your attention, and the attention of everyone you know. While your internal resources hit rock bottom, their numbers only go up. Most people have already lost this war. They've become nothing more than reactive software running on someone else's server. But then, there are the untouchables. You've seen them. They are the ones who don't flinch when the market collapses. They don't reply to the insult. They don't rush to have an opinion. While everyone else is leaking energy like a broken pipe, these individuals seem to have an infinite supply of it. We've been taught to call this calmness, like it's some soft, poetic trait. It's not. Real calmness is a predatory advantage. It is the ultimate form of cognitive autonomy. It's the ability to look at a world screaming in your face and say, "You don't have permission to change my temperature." Today, we aren't here to talk about meditation or inner peace. We are here to talk about the neural shield. We're going to deconstruct the high-performance psychology of those who cannot be manipulated. We'll show you why their brains handle fear differently, how they turn their past burnouts into armor, and how you can reclaim the only asset you have left: your own attention. If you're tired of being a puppet, the exit is this way. To understand the untouchables, you have to look past the mask and into the hardware. Most people operate on what we call a high-latency emotional system. When a trigger hits, a sharp critique, a sudden loss, or a market dip, their brain enters a state of signal overload. Inside your skull, you are running a legacy system called the amygdala. It's a 200,000-year-old alarm clock designed to save you from tigers. The problem, in 2026, it doesn't know the difference between a predator and a direct message. When it fires, it initiates a system hijack. It floods your neural pathways with cortisol and adrenaline, physically cutting off your access to logic. Your brain isn't thinking anymore. It's just running an ancient survival script. But the elite calm, they've reconfigured their internal bandwidth. In neurobiology, this is known as cortical inhibition. While the average person is a slave to instant reactions, the calm person has built a neural buffer. When the alarm goes off, they don't try to stop the noise. They've learned that fighting the feeling only feeds the fire. Instead, they activate the prefrontal cortex, the brain's CEO, to act as a circuit breaker. They've stretched the microsecond between trigger and reaction into a diagnostic window. They aren't suppressing their feelings. That would be like trying to hold back a flood with a cardboard box. No, they are processing data. They look at the anger, the fear, or the panic not as a command to act, but as a notification on a screen. A pop-up window they can choose to close. By the time they speak, they aren't reacting to the event. They are responding to the strategy. This is the air gap of the mind. If you can control that 1 second of processing, you become the only person in the room who isn't being hacked by their own biology. You stop being a reactive node and start being the operator of your own system. You don't get this kind of neural armor by accident. You don't read a book and suddenly become unshakable. Most people see a calm person and assume they've lived a life of peace. The reality is often the opposite. These individuals are usually the survivors of a massive system crash. In their past, they weren't just overthinkers, they were high-intensity processors. They tried to run too many applications at once, trying to please every user, trying to control every variable, trying to predict every outcome. They operated in a state of constant overheat, thinking that stress was a sign of high performance. But then they hit a point of total resource depletion. They became calm because they had to. They realized that their previous operating system was unsustainable. Think of it as the Great Deletion. One day, they stopped trying to fix the world and started protecting their own uptime. They learned through the kind of exhaustion that leaves you silent that 99% of what we worry about is just background noise. Society has made anxiety a status symbol. We think if we aren't stressed, we aren't in the game. But the calm person has opted out of this collective delusion. They've reached a level of anti-fragility. They don't just handle the storm. They've learned that the storm is irrelevant to their internal core. They didn't find Zen. They found efficiency. They let go of the need to control the tide because they realized they are the mountain that the tide can't move. There is a profound misunderstanding about what it means to be a calm person. Most people look at someone who is unshakable and assume they are cold. They assume that to be calm, you have to stop caring, or that you've somehow killed your emotions. But that's not calmness. That's apathy. True composure is actually the highest form of emotional intelligence. It's not about being a stone. It's about being an ocean. Think about the ocean for a moment. On the surface, it might be chaotic. There are waves, there is debris, there is white foam whipped up by the wind. But if you dive just a few meters down, the world changes. The noise vanishes. The pressure is steady. The depths are untouched by the storm above. Most people move through their lives like sponges. They walk into an office where everyone is stressed, and by 10 a.m. they are stressed too. They read a comment section full of hate, and they carry that poison in their veins for the rest of the day. They absorb the resentments of their partners, the anxieties of their children, and the collective panic of the 2026 news cycle. They are heavy, saturated, and leaking emotions that don't even belong to them. The calm person has moved beyond being a sponge. They have mastered the art of selective presence. In this era of hyperconnectivity, the world is constantly inviting you to an argument. Every notification is a request for your energy. Every headline is a demand for your outrage. The calm person knows that not every invitation deserves an RSVP. They move through the world with a silent internal filter. They've realized that their energy is the most sacred and finite resource they own. Before they engage, before they speak, before they let someone else's bad mood ruin their afternoon, they ask one question: is this worth my peace? If the answer is no, they don't fight, and they don't run. They simply let the energy pass right through them. They don't need to win every debate to feel valid. They don't need to have the last word to feel powerful. They understand that being right is often a trap, a distraction that costs more in mental clarity than it's worth in ego. By refusing to reflect the chaos of others, they don't just protect themselves, they change the environment. Their silence becomes a mirror that forces everyone else to face their own noise. This isn't just staying relaxed. This is a quiet rebellion against a world that wants you to be exhausted. Most people suffer from what economists call the sunk cost fallacy. They spend their current emotions trying to fix a past that is already gone. They invest new resources, today's peace of mind, into trying to rescue old investments, yesterday's mistakes, failed relationships, or lost opportunities. The calm individuals you see navigating the chaos are not passive people who have given up. They are something much more formidable. They are the world's most efficient auditors of reality. When something goes wrong, a market crash, a betrayal, a missed deadline, the average person enters a state of emotional litigation. They spend hours, days, or even years in an internal courtroom arguing with the past. They present evidence of why it was unfair. They call imaginary witnesses in their head to prove they were right. They scream at the judge, demanding a different outcome for a trial that ended weeks ago. But here is the brutal truth that the untouchables have mastered. The past has a 0% interest rate. You cannot invest in it, and you cannot get a return from it. Every second you spend litigating what should have been is a second stolen from the only thing you can actually influence: what is happening now. In high-performance psychology, we call this radical resource allocation. Think of it like driving a car. If you get a flat tire, most people spend 10 minutes hitting the steering wheel and cursing the road. This is arguing with reality. It creates friction, and friction, as we know from physics, creates heat. In a human system, that heat leads to burnout, exhaustion, and a total system meltdown. The calm person looks at the flat tire as an objective data point. The tire is flat, that is 100% reality. In that microsecond, they delete the emotional file associated with why it happened or how unfair it is. They ask one clinical question: what is the most efficient protocol for repair right now? Narrator: by building this internal architecture, they eliminate the friction of disappointment. By 2026, we've been sold a lie that if we aren't vibrating with stress, we aren't taking things seriously. We've been told that anger is a sign of passion. But the elite calm have discovered a deeper strategic truth. Stress is not a tool, it is a leak. It is energy escaping from your system that could have been used for the solution. They follow the logic of the fluid. Water doesn't get angry when it hits a rock in the stream. It doesn't stop to explain to the rock why it shouldn't be there. It doesn't waste energy trying to push the rock out of the way. It simply feels the contours of the obstacle, finds the path of least resistance, and keeps moving toward the ocean. Acceptance isn't about liking the situation. It's about optimizing for it. They save 100% of their power for the variables they can actually move, while the rest of the world is standing on the shore, screaming at the waves for being too high. The calm person is the one studying the tide and building a better boat. In a world of people fighting a war with the past, the person who accepts the present is the only one with the power to design the future. In the social landscape of 2026, we are living through a crisis of reflected chaos. Most human interactions have become predictable loops. Someone insults you, and you reflexively insult them back. Someone panics, and you subconsciously mirror their anxiety. We've become reactive mirrors, bouncing the same low-frequency energy back and forth until the entire room is vibrating with stress. But the untouchables have opted out of this loop. They understand a principle from game theory that most people ignore. You cannot have a tug of war if one person refuses to hold the rope. This is their social magic. It's not about being nice. It's about mirror neutralization. When a calm person is met with aggression, they don't meet fire with fire that just creates a bigger blaze. They meet fire with an absolute chilling lack of oxygen. Think about the mechanics of a confrontation. An aggressor is looking for a specific payload. They want your defensive reaction. They want your explanation. They want to see your pulse quicken. This reaction is the fuel their ego needs to feel powerful. When you remain calm, you deny them that fuel. You create a return to sender effect, where their own toxic energy has nowhere to go but back to them. In high-performance social psychology, we call this frame dominance. The person with the most stable internal state always sets the tone for the environment. By refusing to reflect the noise of others, the calm person becomes the anchor. They've realized that silence is not a lack of words. It's a sophisticated boundary system. They don't waste their truth on people who are only committed to misunderstanding them. They don't explain themselves to those who only want an excuse to shout. They understand that in 2026, your response is a valuable asset. Why would you give it away for free to someone who hasn't earned it? By staying still, they force the other person to confront their own reflection. When you shout at a calm person, you are forced to hear how ugly your own voice sounds. When you panic in front of them, you are forced to see how irrational your own fear looks. This isn't just staying relaxed. This is social sovereignty. They understand that your inner temperature is your own responsibility, and the moment you let someone else change it, you've handed them the remote control to your life. The calm person keeps the remote. They realize that being right is a trap, but being at peace is a victory that requires no witnesses. Most people think of peace as a soft, spiritual luxury, something they'll find once their to-do list is empty. But for the untouchables, peace is not a reward. It is an infrastructure. It is the foundation that allows the system to run without crashing. They don't search for calm in the middle of a crisis. They build a reservoir of stillness during the quiet hours, so that when the pressure spikes at 2 p.m., they have enough internal coolant to keep the engine from melting down. They understand a fundamental law of high-performance psychology. If you don't deliberately design your day for silence, the world will deliberately design it for noise. They operate on what we call the protocol of sacred boundaries. In the hyper-connected environment of 2026, we've been sold the lie that availability is a virtue. We feel a twitch of guilt if we don't respond to a notification within seconds. But the calm person treats their attention like a high-value asset. They create dead zones, scheduled windows of time where they are intentionally unreachable, unsearchable, and completely offline. This isn't about avoiding work. It's about cognitive recovery. They know that the brain wasn't designed to process the collective tragedies of 8 billion people simultaneously. By cutting the feed, they allow their neural cache to clear, preventing the buildup of emotional fragmenting that leads to burnout. They have also mastered the art of the single process. While the rest of the world is drowning in the inefficiency of multitasking, switching tabs, checking phones, half listening to meetings, the calm person practices aggressive focus. When they drink their morning coffee, they aren't planning their day, they are just drinking coffee. They are training their brain to stay in the present state. This looks like a simple habit, but it's actually a high-level recalibration of their nervous system. They are teaching their amygdala that right now, in this micro-moment, there is no threat. By repeatedly proving to their biology that they are safe, they lower their baseline anxiety. This daily architecture is their system maintenance. They don't wait for a vacation to reset. They reset every morning. They reset between every meeting. They treat their internal temperature as a non-negotiable metric. They understand that the world in 2026 will try to steal every second of your silence and sell it back to you as content. By building these rituals, they are reclaiming their sovereignty. They aren't just relaxing, they are ensuring that when the real storm hits, their foundation is made of concrete while everyone else is standing on sand. In the end, we have to confront the ultimate strategic reality of 2026. The world is not going to get any quieter. The algorithms will only get smarter. The noise will only get louder. The demand for your outrage and your anxiety will only increase. If you are waiting for external conditions to settle before you find your peace, you are waiting for a day that will never come. You are effectively leaving your internal system open to anyone with a loud enough voice or a provocative enough headline. But the untouchables, the people we have deconstructed today, have found a different path. They've realized that the most valuable asset in a chaotic world is cognitive sovereignty. It is the absolute ownership of your own internal state. They don't have a perfect life. They have the same bills, the same tragedies, and the same biological instincts as you. But they have built a neural shield that changes how they process those variables. They've realized that the pause is not just a psychological trick, it is a sanctuary. It is the only place where you are not a puppet. Being calm is not about being nice. It's not about being soft. It is a predatory advantage. It is the ability to look at a room full of panic and remain the only one with the bandwidth to find a solution. It is the power to look at an insult and see only low-value data that isn't worth your processing power. It is the freedom to look at your own fear and say, I see you, but you aren't in charge today. This is the new cognitive elite. The wealth of the future isn't about how much you can acquire, but about how much you can refuse to let disturb you. It's about the air gap between the chaos of the world and the stillness of your soul. So as you step back into the noise of your day, remember this: your reaction is the only thing they can't take by force. You have to give it away. You have to volunteer it. The ocean doesn't need to explain its depth. The mountain doesn't need to argue about its height. They simply are. And you don't need to fight the world to find your peace. You just have to stop letting the world run its software on your hardware. Reclaim your temperature, reclaim your attention, reclaim your sovereignty. Because in an age of constant reaction, the most revolutionary thing you can be is still.